The Correctional Services Department speaking tough against the scuffle between wardens and some of the accused in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. During a tea break yesterday, blows were exchanged after a warden confronted the accused and asked them to sit down. The department saying such behavior will not be tolerated. It says the accused should file complaints through the proper channels if there's an issue. That's if there is an issue. Let's get some analysis on this now, and I'm joined by legal expert Ulrich Roux, who's going to put us into the picture here as to what possible consequences could follow. Ulrich, good morning to you, and perhaps before we get deeper into the details here, when you watched that scuffle, I'm sure during a news bulletin last night, what came to mind? Have you ever seen that before in a court of law?
Hi, good morning, Corey. Thank you for having me. Yes, it was certainly quite a bizarre incident. When people appear in court, then it is expected of them to behave appropriately and to respect the court. In this instance, it was during the tea adjournment, and it seems as if tempers flared a bit. But it shouldn't have any bearing on the main matter, and I think that's the stance that was taken by the judge as well, is that people must behave whilst in court, and if they don't behave whilst the court is in session, then a person could in fact be held in contempt of court, could be arrested and could be removed from the court. In this instance, that was not the case, given that the incident took place during the tea adjournment.
As we mentioned in the introduction, the Correctional Services Department saying that there are going to be consequences. I know you don't work with correctional services, but presumably what kind of action could follow on the back of this?
Well, if they feel that the incident warrants same, then they could very well lay a charge of assault against the inmates. The inmates themselves could obviously also lay a charge of assault against the wardens who were accompanying them to court. But I think in this instance, given that they are presently in custody, the inmates or the accused in this matter should at all times try and behave appropriately, because any behavior which could be seen to be unbecoming can be used against them in future. Should they attempt to be released on parole, or should they make some application to the Department of Correctional Services, and this will certainly go onto their record and will be considered by any a forum that adjudicates their behavior whilst they are under the control of the Department of Correctional Services. Looking at the incident, I don't think that it really warrants the charges of assault being laid, but one would have to wait and see what the Department of Correctional Services decide at the end of the day. It seems as if some of the accused were not sitting appropriately in court, that they were sitting on the railing with their feet on the bench. Yeah. I mean, that is just a normal, I think, ethical or an upbringing issue. That's just respecting the furniture in the court and behaving appropriately, and I think that's where it should ultimately end, to be honest.
Yeah, and Ulrich, I suppose also it's got to do with behaving in a manner that says you are in a court of law. Yes, the court may not be in session, but you will give respect to authority. And that's what the prison warders are, I suppose, when the court is on a break. But let me add here that some among the accused, and I stress the word some, are hardened criminals who are already serving sentence. If an incident, or if it were to have happened, that some of the wardens here, or the specific warden, was carrying a firearm, who knows what could have happened? My question then is, should the accused, all of them, perhaps be in leg irons, handcuffs, given the incident that occurred yesterday?
Yes, well, I think to add to your point, because they are in custody and some of them have been sentenced on other crimes, as you correctly point out, they remain under the control of the Department of Correctional Services. So the warden, he acted appropriately in ensuring that they behave in an appropriate manner. And that is what the accused and the inmates must remember at all times, is that they are under the control of the Department of Correctional Services and that they must behave appropriately. Whether they should be in leg irons or handcuffs, that is a decision to be made by the Department of Correctional Services itself. There's no hard or fast rule. There's also no legislation which confirms when a person should be detained in leg irons. That is the decision of the Department of Correctional Services, and at their behest. But if an investigation is conducted and it is found that these accused behaved inappropriately and not as they should have, then one could very well see an application or the department making a decision that they should be brought to court in leg irons. If the accused then want to object to that, then they would have to make an application to the presiding officer, in this instance the judge in court, to say that this is completely inappropriate, that their behavior does not warrant them now being detained in leg irons and having to sit in leg irons and handcuffs. And then it is once again the decision of the judge adjudicating over the matter whether those leg irons should be removed or not. Yeah. So you are 100% correct that we could very well see on the next occasion that subsequent to an investigation being conducted by the Department of Correctional Services, that these accused do appear in court in leg irons and handcuffs, so as to ensure that they behave appropriately and that a scuffle such as this does not break out once again. And I agree with you. If the member of the Department of Correctional Services was carrying a firearm, then it could very well have been a very serious incident with serious repercussions. So thankfully he was not carrying a firearm, given the physical altercation that he was involved in with the accused.
Ulrich Roux, thank you very much for your contribution to this discussion. A legal expert weighing in on the incident that we saw yesterday. And in fact, talking about that particular case, we're going to have to wait and see the complexion of the sitting today